What if the difference between where you are now and where you want to be isn't just hard work, but the ability to think several moves ahead like a grandmaster chess player? You can find this game-changing book, Your Next 5 Moves by Patrick Bet-David, through the link in the video description below. In a world obsessed with hustle culture and overnight success stories, Patrick Bet-David offers something far more valuable: a strategic framework for making decisions that will shape not just your next move, but your next 5 moves. Drawing from his experience as a successful entrepreneur, financial advisor, and creator of the popular Value Entertainment YouTube channel, Bet-David presents a methodical approach to business and life that transforms reactive thinking into strategic mastery. The book's central premise is simple yet profound. While most people think only about their next step, truly successful individuals think 5 moves ahead. This chess-inspired approach to strategic thinking isn't just for CEOs or business leaders. It's for anyone who wants to advance in their career, build a business, or create a meaningful life with purpose and intention. By developing this skill, you transform yourself from a pawn reacting to circumstances into a grandmaster creating circumstances. Bet-David structures the book around 5 critical strategic areas: mastering the ability to reason, understanding exactly who you are, building the right team, creating a clear path to achieving your vision, and developing advanced strategic thinking. Each area builds upon the previous one, creating a comprehensive framework for navigating complex decisions with clarity and purpose. The first move, learning to think critically, forms the foundation of strategic mastery. Bet-David argues that most people make decisions based on emotions, social pressure, or limited information rather than clear reasoning. This reactive approach leaves them vulnerable to manipulation and poor outcomes. Instead, he advocates developing what he calls macro patience and micro speed, the ability to maintain a long-term perspective while acting decisively in the moment. Critical thinking begins with asking better questions. Bet-David suggests regularly interrogating your assumptions and decisions with questions like, what am I missing? What's the downside? Who benefits from my choice? What evidence contradicts my position? These questions create mental distance from immediate reactions, allowing for more objective analysis. This discipline helps avoid common cognitive traps like confirmation bias, where we seek only information that supports what we already believe. He illustrates this principle with the story of Netflix's decision to shift from DVD rentals to streaming. While competitors focused on optimizing the existing DVD business model, Netflix CEO Reed Hastings asked more fundamental questions about how technology would change entertainment consumption. This critical thinking allowed Netflix to cannibalize its own successful DVD business before competitors could, positioning the company to dominate the streaming revolution that followed. Bet-David emphasizes that critical thinking requires intellectual humility, the willingness to acknowledge what you don't know and adjust your views when new evidence emerges. He points to Kodak's failure as a cautionary tale. Despite actually inventing digital photography technology, Kodak executives refused to pivot from their profitable film business because they couldn't imagine digital photography replacing traditional film. Their emotional attachment to the existing business model prevented objective analysis of market trends, ultimately leading to bankruptcy. Developing critical thinking also means learning to recognize and manage cognitive biases. Bet-David highlights several that particularly undermine strategic decision-making: loss aversion, fearing losses more than valuing equivalent gains; sunk cost fallacy, continuing investments based on what you've already spent rather than future prospects; and recency bias, overweighting recent events when making predictions. By becoming aware of these tendencies, you can implement processes to counteract them. One such process is the second-order thinking exercise, where you consider not just the immediate consequences of a decision, but the consequences of those consequences. For example, when considering a price cut to boost sales, first-order thinking sees only the immediate sales increase. Second-order thinking recognizes that competitors might match the price cut, customers might devalue the product, and profit margins would permanently shrink. This deeper analysis often reveals that seemingly obvious decisions have hidden downsides. The book's second move focuses on self-awareness, knowing exactly who you are, what motivates you, and where you want to go. Bet David argues that without this clarity, even the best strategic thinking will lead you in circles. He recommends a comprehensive self-assessment process covering 7 dimensions: your origin story, core values, genuine interests, natural abilities, acquired skills, personality traits, and ultimate vision. Understanding your origin story means recognizing how your upbringing and formative experiences shape your decision-making patterns. Bet David shares his own experience immigrating to America from Iran and growing up with limited resources. This background created both strengths, resilience, hunger to succeed, and blind spots, initial distrust of established institutions, that influenced his early business decisions. By examining your own origin story, you can leverage its strengths while compensating for its limitations. Identifying your core values provides a decision-making framework that remains consistent even as circumstances change. Bet David suggests listing your non-negotiable principles and regularly asking whether your actions align with them. This prevents the common trap of success leading to value drift, where achieving certain goals causes you to compromise the very principles that gave meaning to those goals. Values clarity also helps distinguish between opportunities that offer financial rewards, but create internal conflict versus those that generate both profit and fulfillment. The self-assessment continues with an honest inventory of your genuine interests, natural talents, and acquired skills. Bet David emphasizes that sustainable success comes from aligning these elements rather than forcing yourself into roles that may offer status or money but drain your energy. He shares examples of entrepreneurs who built successful businesses in unexpected niches by following genuine interests, from mundane products like specialized industrial fasteners to niche software for specific industries. Their passion for the subject matter gave them insights and persistence that competitors lacked. Personality assessment forms another crucial component of self-knowledge. Bet David acknowledges the value of frameworks like Myers-Briggs or DISC profiles, but goes deeper, encouraging readers to understand how their personality affects team dynamics, communication style, and leadership approach. He gives the example of a naturally introverted executive who tried to mimic charismatic leaders rather than developing a leadership style authentic to his thoughtful, analytical nature. Only when he embraced his natural style, deep listening, careful analysis, and written communication, did his leadership effectiveness improve. The culmination of this self-assessment is developing a clear vision for your future. Bet David recommends an exercise he calls writing your obituary, detailing how you want to be remembered across various dimensions of life. This future-backward thinking clarifies not just career goals, but also relationship aspirations, contributions to community, and personal development. With this comprehensive vision, you can evaluate opportunities based on whether they move you toward your desired legacy, rather than just immediate benefits. The book's third move addresses building the right team around you. Bet David emphasizes that strategic mastery requires more than individual brilliance. It demands assembling and developing people who complement your strengths and compensate for your weaknesses. This move begins with understanding the 5 types of people every successful leader needs in their inner circle: the producer, the stabilizer, the innovator, the unifier, and the high-potential performer. The producer delivers consistent results and focuses primarily on execution. This person typically has strong technical skills and work ethic, but may lack strategic vision or people skills. The stabilizer brings operational discipline and systems thinking, creating the infrastructure that allows growth without chaos. The innovator challenges established approaches and generates creative solutions, but may struggle with follow-through. The unifier builds culture and resolves conflicts, maintaining team cohesion during challenges. The high-potential performer may not yet excel in any specific category, but shows the capacity for rapid growth and adaptation. Bet David argues that most leadership failures stem from imbalance among these types, either surrounding yourself with too many similar personalities or failing to recognize which type belongs in which role. He illustrates this with the story of a founder who staffed his executive team entirely with innovative personalities like himself. The company generated brilliant ideas but couldn't execute consistently, eventually losing market share to less innovative but more operationally disciplined competitors. Building the right team also requires understanding what Bet David calls the 4 stages of an A player. Stage 1, A players execute assigned tasks with excellence. Stage 2, A players anticipate problems and solve them without direction. Stage 3, A players improve existing systems and train others. Stage 4, A players identify strategic opportunities and create new value streams. Most hiring processes focus only on Stage 1 capabilities, missing the development potential that distinguishes truly exceptional team members. Equally important is learning to recognize and manage C players, team members who consistently underperform or create negative culture. Bet David takes a nuanced approach, distinguishing between different types of underperformers: those with attitude problems but good skills, those with skill deficiencies but good attitudes, and those with both skill and attitude issues. Each requires a different intervention strategy, but all demand direct, timely feedback and clear improvement metrics. The team-building move also addresses compensation philosophy, recognition systems, and development pathways. Bet David advocates for performance-based compensation structures that align individual incentives with organizational goals. He warns against the common pitfall of promoting top individual contributors into management roles without assessing their leadership capabilities, suggesting instead dual-track advancement paths that allow technical specialists to increase compensation and influence without necessarily managing others. The fourth move focuses on developing a clear strategy for achieving your vision. Bet David distinguishes between vision, the destination, strategy, the general approach, and tactics-specific actions. Many organizations fail because they confuse these levels, either getting lost in tactical details without strategic coherence or creating inspiring visions without practical implementation plans. Strategic clarity begins with market positioning, understanding exactly what value you provide and to whom. Bet David recommends a rigorous process of defining your unique value proposition through 3 questions. What problem do you solve? For whom specifically do you solve it? Why is your solution demonstrably better than alternatives? He emphasizes the importance of narrowing focus initially, arguing that most businesses try to serve too many customer segments with too many products, diluting their effectiveness. Once positioning is clear, the next step is developing a growth roadmap with specific milestones. Bet David introduces the concept of strategic inflection points, moments when the business must fundamentally evolve to continue growing. These typically occur when reaching certain team sizes, around 3, 10, 25, 75, and 200 people, or revenue thresholds. Each inflection point requires different organizational structures, leadership approaches, and operational systems. Anticipating these transitions allows proactive preparation rather than reactive crisis management. The strategy move also addresses resource allocation, particularly how to balance investment between what Bet David calls defensive and offensive priorities. Defensive investments protect existing business, improving customer retention, increasing operational efficiency, reducing risks. Offensive investments create new growth, entering new markets, developing new products, acquiring competitors. He suggests that the appropriate balance shifts depending on market conditions, competitive threats, and the organization's financial stability. A critical aspect of strategy development is competitive analysis, understanding not just current competitors but potential future threats. Bet David recommends regularly mapping your competitive landscape across multiple dimensions. Direct competitors offering similar solutions, indirect competitors solving the same problem differently, and potential disruptors who might completely change market dynamics. This exercise helps identify both immediate competitive responses and longer-term strategic shifts. The fifth and final move covers advanced strategic thinking, developing the mental models and decision frameworks that allow five-move-ahead planning. Bet David introduces several powerful concepts, beginning with the key driver analysis. This process identifies the small number of metrics or activities that disproportionately influence overall results. By focusing on these key drivers, rather than trying to optimize everything simultaneously, you achieve better results with less effort and complexity. Another advanced concept is the Strategic Opportunity Assessment Framework, which evaluates potential opportunities across five dimensions: market timing, competitive advantage, resource requirements, risk factors, and alignment with core strengths. This systematic approach prevents both missed opportunities due to excessive caution and resource dispersion from pursuing too many directions simultaneously. Bet David emphasizes the importance of developing multiple contingency plans, what he calls if-then scenarios. This practice involves identifying potential obstacles or market shifts, then creating specific response plans for each possibility. Rather than reacting in the moment, you've already thought through various scenarios and prepared your responses. This contingency planning creates both strategic flexibility and psychological confidence when facing uncertainty. The advanced strategic thinking move also covers time management through the lens of opportunity cost. Bet David argues that truly strategic individuals constantly evaluate not just whether an activity is productive, but whether it's the most valuable use of limited time. He introduces a prioritization matrix that categorizes activities based on both urgency and strategic impact, advocating for maximizing time spent on non-urgent but strategically significant initiatives, the quadrant most frequently neglected in typical time management. Throughout the book, Bet David illustrates these strategic principles with both business examples and chess analogies, showing how grandmaster thinking applies across domains. He emphasizes that developing five-move-ahead capability requires both conceptual understanding and deliberate practice. The book includes specific exercises for each strategic area, designed to strengthen your strategic muscles through regular application. One particularly powerful exercise is the decision journal, where you document important decisions, your reasoning, expected outcomes, and variables that could affect results. Reviewing this journal periodically reveals patterns in your decision-making process and helps calibrate your judgment over time. This practice accelerates learning by creating a feedback loop between decisions and outcomes, allowing you to identify both cognitive biases and successful mental models. Bet David addresses common obstacles to implementing the five moves methodology, beginning with what he calls firefighter syndrome, the tendency to focus exclusively on immediate problems rather than long-term strategy. He suggests creating dedicated time blocks for strategic thinking, physically, removing yourself from operational environments where possible, and deliberately limiting reactive communications during these periods. Another common obstacle is fear of commitment to a specific direction. Strategic clarity requires making choices that eliminate certain possibilities, which creates psychological resistance. Bet David recommends the regret minimization framework, popularized by Jeff Bezos, projecting yourself into the future and asking which choice you're more likely to regret not having made. This future perspective often clarifies decisions that seem difficult in the moment. The book also tackles implementation challenges, particularly the gap between strategic insight and consistent execution. Bet David introduces the concept of strategic habits, regular practices that maintain alignment between daily activities and long-term direction. These include weekly strategy reviews, monthly progress assessments against key metrics, and quarterly step-back sessions to evaluate broader market trends and competitive movements. For entrepreneurs and business leaders, Bet David provides specific guidance on applying the 5 Moves framework to organizational challenges. He addresses scaling issues, emphasizing the importance of codifying core processes before growth creates complexity that can't be managed through direct oversight. This systematization allows the organization to maintain quality and culture while expanding beyond the founder's direct control. He also discusses the leadership evolution required at different organizational stages, from the hands-on approach effective in early startups to the more strategic, vision-focused leadership needed in larger enterprises. This transition proves particularly challenging for entrepreneurial founders, who often struggle to shift from doing everything themselves to leading through others. Bet David offers practical advice for navigating this evolution, without losing the entrepreneurial edge that created initial success. For those not in formal leadership positions, the book demonstrates how 5-move thinking creates career advantages regardless of role. By understanding organizational priorities beyond your immediate responsibilities, you make decisions that align with broader objectives, positioning yourself as someone who thinks at a higher level than your current position. This strategic perspective typically accelerates advancement more effectively than simply executing assigned tasks with excellence. The book includes guidance for applying 5-move thinking to personal finance, relationship development, and health decisions. In each domain, Bet David emphasizes the same principles: clarity about desired outcomes, honest assessment of current reality, strategic prioritization of key drivers, disciplined execution of selected actions, and regular evaluation of progress against defined metrics. Throughout the book, Bet David balances ambitious strategic thinking with practical realism. He acknowledges that even the best strategic plans encounter unexpected obstacles and require adjustment. The 5 Moves approach isn't about perfect prediction, but about creating a flexible strategic framework that improves decision quality while maintaining adaptability to changing circumstances. He addresses the emotional challenges of strategic leadership, particularly the loneliness of making consequential decisions and the pressure of responsibility for others' livelihoods. Bet David suggests developing what he calls emotional strategic reserves, practices that maintain psychological resilience during difficult periods. These include cultivating relationships with peers facing similar challenges, establishing regular reflection rituals, and maintaining perspective through connection with personal purpose beyond business success. The book concludes by connecting strategic mastery with legacy building, creating impact that extends beyond immediate business or career success. Bet David argues that 5-move thinking naturally expands your perspective from quarterly results to generational impact. By considering how today's decisions affect not just immediate stakeholders but future ones, you develop both better strategies and more meaningful motivation to execute them. For readers already in leadership positions, Your Next 5 Moves offers a systematic approach to elevating strategic thinking throughout their organizations. Bet David provides frameworks for assessing your team's strategic capabilities, identifying high-potential strategic thinkers for development, and creating learning processes that build organizational strategic muscle, rather than depending solely on individual brilliance. For those earlier in their careers, the book demonstrates how developing strategic thinking creates disproportionate value regardless of your current role. By applying 5-move thinking to your responsibilities, you not only achieve better results but also demonstrate capabilities that typically lead to accelerated advancement. Bet David shares examples of individuals who leveraged strategic thinking to progress from entry-level positions to significant leadership roles more rapidly than peers with similar technical skills, but less developed strategic capabilities. For entrepreneurs, the 5 Moves framework provides guidance for navigating the different challenges that emerge at each business stage. Bet David addresses the transition from startup to sustainable business, from founder-driven to systems-driven operations, and from market entry to market leadership. At each stage, he identifies the specific strategic capabilities required for successful evolution. The book also offers valuable perspective for those contemplating major life or career transitions. Bet David outlines how 5-move thinking helps evaluate potential paths, assess required resources and capabilities, identify likely obstacles, and develop contingency plans. This structured approach reduces both the anxiety and the risk associated with significant changes, whether starting a business, changing careers, or relocating to pursue new opportunities. Throughout your next 5 moves, Bet David emphasizes that strategic mastery isn't an innate talent but a developed skill. While some people naturally think more strategically than others, anyone can significantly improve their strategic capabilities through deliberate practice and conceptual understanding. The book provides specific exercises for strengthening each component of strategic thinking, from critical reasoning to competitive analysis to long-term planning. One particularly valuable aspect of Bet David's approach is his emphasis on balancing analytical thinking with emotional intelligence. He argues that truly effective strategy integrates rational analysis of market conditions and competitive dynamics with nuanced understanding of human motivation and behavior. This balanced perspective prevents both the cold calculation that ignores human factors and the emotional decision-making that disregards market realities. The book includes guidance for applying strategic thinking during crisis periods, when the pressure for immediate action often overwhelms longer-term considerations. Bet David provides a framework for crisis decision-making that maintains strategic perspective even while addressing urgent needs. This approach helps prevent short-term crisis responses that create larger long-term problems, a common failure pattern in both business and personal decision-making. Bet David addresses the challenge of strategic patience, maintaining commitment to sound long-term strategies despite short-term pressures for results or direction changes. He offers practical approaches for both sustaining your own conviction during difficult periods and managing stakeholder expectations when strategic initiatives require extended timeframes to demonstrate results. For readers interested in entrepreneurship, the book provides valuable insights into opportunity evaluation. Bet David outlines a comprehensive assessment framework that examines market dynamics, competitive positioning, resource requirements, risk factors, and alignment with personal strengths. This structured approach helps distinguish between superficially attractive opportunities and those with genuine strategic potential. The book also offers guidance for career strategists navigating organizational politics. Rather than viewing political dynamics as obstacles to be avoided, Bet David presents them as strategic realities to be understood and navigated effectively. He provides frameworks for mapping influence networks, understanding unstated organizational priorities, and building coalitions to support important initiatives. For those focused on personal development, the 5 Moves framework offers a structured approach to skill building and knowledge acquisition. Rather than pursuing random self-improvement activities, Bet David recommends developing a strategic learning plan based on clear career objectives, identified skill gaps, and high-leverage knowledge areas. This focused approach accelerates development by concentrating effort where it creates maximum value. The book includes specific guidance for different personality types applying the 5 Moves methodology. Bet David acknowledges that naturally analytical individuals may overemphasize data at the expense of intuition and human factors, while naturally intuitive types might make decisions without sufficient analytical rigor. He offers tailored recommendations for balancing these tendencies based on your natural cognitive preferences. For readers interested in team development, the book provides frameworks for building strategic capabilities across organizations. Bet David outlines specific meeting structures, decision processes, and review practices that gradually strengthen collective strategic thinking. He emphasizes that organizational, strategic capacity emerges from both individual capabilities and interaction patterns that either support or undermine effective collective reasoning. The book addresses the growing challenge of strategic thinking amid information overload and constant distraction. Bet David offers practical approaches for maintaining strategic focus despite these pressures, including information filtering systems, attention management practices, and environmental modifications that support deep thinking rather than reactive responsiveness. For those interested in business growth, the 5 Moves framework provides specific guidance for expansion decisions. Bet David outlines different growth strategies: market penetration, market expansion, product development, and diversification, with criteria for selecting the appropriate approach based on market conditions, competitive position, and organizational capabilities. The book offers valuable perspective on strategic partnerships and acquisition opportunities. Bet David provides frameworks for evaluating potential collaborations beyond immediate financial considerations, examining cultural compatibility, strategic alignment, and long-term competitive implications. This comprehensive assessment helps prevent partnerships that offer short-term benefits but create longer-term constraints or complications. For readers managing teams, the book includes guidance for strategic talent development. Bet David outlines approaches for identifying high-potential individuals, creating accelerated development experiences, and building succession depth that supports long-term organizational sustainability. This talent strategy connects directly to business strategy, ensuring capabilities align with future directional needs. The book addresses the challenge of balancing innovation with operational excellence, a tension that affects organizations of all sizes. Bet David offers structural approaches for managing this polarity, including dedicated innovation processes, protected resources for exploration, and staged implementation pathways that bridge between creative concepts and operational reality. For those navigating competitive threats, the 5 Moves framework provides systematic approaches for competitive response. Bet David outlines different competitive postures: defensive consolidation, offensive disruption, niche focus, or strategic repositioning, with criteria for selecting the appropriate stance based on market position, resource availability, and competitive dynamics. The book offers guidance for making difficult strategic pivots when market conditions change or initial approaches prove unsuccessful. Bet David outlines both the analytical framework for determining when pivots are necessary and the implementation approach for executing them, while maintaining team cohesion and stakeholder confidence. For readers interested in personal productivity, the book connects daily activities to strategic objectives through what Bet David calls strategic efficiency, focusing not just on doing things right, but on doing the right things. This approach transcends traditional time management by evaluating activities based on their strategic leverage rather than merely their efficiency. The book addresses the challenge of maintaining strategic perspective during high-growth periods, when operational demands can easily overwhelm longer-term considerations. Bet David provides structural approaches for protecting strategic thinking time and maintaining directional clarity despite the pressing needs of rapid expansion. For those leading organizations through uncertainty, the 5 Moves framework offers approaches for maintaining strategic progress despite incomplete information. Bet David outlines methods for making reversible decisions, creating information-gathering experiments, and establishing trigger points for strategic adjustments based on emerging data. The book includes guidance for strategic communication, articulating vision, strategy, and rationale in ways that create understanding and commitment rather than merely compliance. Bet David emphasizes that strategic clarity in the leader's mind becomes valuable only when successfully transmitted throughout the organization through consistent, compelling communication. For readers interested in building sustainable competitive advantage, the book outlines approaches for developing organizational capabilities that competitors cannot easily replicate. Bet David distinguishes between temporary advantages based on timing or trends and durable advantages based on unique capabilities, proprietary systems, or distinctive culture. The book addresses the strategic implications of technological disruption across industries. Bet David provides frameworks for assessing how emerging technologies might affect your business model, competitive position, and customer relationships. This forward-looking analysis helps prevent the common failure pattern of recognizing disruptive threats only after they've already undermined your market position. For those navigating significant life decisions, the 5 Moves framework offers structured approaches for major choices about location, relationships, education, or career direction. Bet David outlines methods for clarifying values, assessing alternatives, understanding implications, and making decisions you're unlikely to regret even if immediate outcomes prove challenging. The book concludes with a powerful perspective on legacy thinking, considering how your decisions and contributions will affect not just immediate stakeholders but future generations. Bet David argues that this extended timeframe naturally improves strategic quality while also providing deeper motivation for disciplined execution and ethical choices. Thank you for watching this summary of Patrick Bet David's Your Next 5 Moves. If you found these strategic insights valuable, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Which of the 5 strategic moves do you find most challenging? How might applying this chess-inspired thinking change your approach to business or life decisions? Remember, the full book contains many more examples and practical exercises than I could include here. You can find it through the link in the video description. Until next time, remember that in both chess and life, the masters aren't just playing the board in front of them. They're already planning their next 5 moves.